Chapter 7 Chopper. Hollis peeked at the rest of his sleeping family, took a deep breath, and asked Jonas, "Ever wonder where Dad is?" Jonas's head snapped around like a tether ball on its last turn around a pole. Hollis smothered a laugh. "Not bad enough up here, Blues? You gotta make it worse?" "I'm curious. You're not? Is he still in New Orleans? Up on a roof?" He gulped. "Or under one?" "Don't care." Jonas's jaw hardened. Anger flared in Hollis. "I'm worried about him." "Don't be," Jonas snapped. "He ain't worried about us." "How do you know?" Jonas didn't respond. "What happened?" Hollis's voice grew exasperated. "G said something happened. What was it?" Jonas glared at him for a moment, but then his eyes fell. "He knocked me down." Hollis couldn't hear the mumbled words. "What?" In a louder voice, Jonas repeated, "He said he was going. I went to stop him, and he knocked me down and left anyway." Hollis stared at his brother. In a small voice, he asked, "Did he mean to?" Jonas rolled his eyes and said nothing. "Oh." Hollis wrapped his arms around his knees and stared at his inundated neighborhood. The two boys sat in silence, Hollis listening to the sound of the water lapping at the eaves. It made him think of secrets. "It sounds like whispering," he said to Jonas. "What does?" "The water." He shivered and turned to Jonas again. "Do you remember much about him?" Jonas scowled. "You gonna keep at me like this?" Hollis nodded. "You had him longer than any of us. So who else am I gonna ask?" "Not G. She hates him." Jonas rubbed the toe of his trainer with his thumb, something he did when he got upset. The rubber pooched and he peeled off a long strip. Hollis watched, frowning. "You're gonna ruin them," he said. Jonas took his hand away and stared into the water. "You were lucky," he said at last. "Dad was a waste. Never came home except to eat or take money from Mama." "He worked, didn't he?" "He worked and gambled and drank and did drugs. That took most of the money he made. A lot of the money she made, too." "Oh." The beginning of a worry nibbled at Hollis. Did he ever do anything or say anything that seemed, good? Jonas frowned. "He used to say work hard, but then he'd say play hard, so I don't know. His playing got us in a lot of trouble." Hollis waited. "There has to be something. No one is all bad." Jonas's forehead wrinkled. "There was a while when I was getting in trouble at school. Fights. With kids. Teachers, too. He said, 'Don't let everyone know how you feel. Keep that stuff to yourself.'" Hollis nodded. "That sounds good." "Yeah," Jonas said. "But then he told me to never walk straight up to a man. It's a good way to get bashed," he said. "Sometimes you have to come at him from the side or even the back to take care of business." Hollis winced. "The man was trouble, I tell you," Jonas burst out, smacking the roof with his hand. "Haven't thought about him for a long time. What I mostly remember is, except for his job, he never did anything. Around the house. He was never around when we needed him, and he lied all the time." "Did he steal?" Hollis asked in a small voice. "I hate people who steal." Jonas shrugged. "Probably, I don't know. He left when Mama found out she was dying of cancer. I think that's worse than stealing." "Maybe he couldn't handle her dying." Jonas rubbed his shoe again and skinned off another long strip of rubber. "He just didn't want us around his neck. Sick wife, dying wife, and 4 kids on top of him when she was gone. He leaves us with G and he's free." "You think it was us?" Hollis felt stunned. "I asked G if it was us that made Dad leave, and she said no." Jonas frowned. "What then?" "Maybe she drove him off." "G?" Jonas asked. "You're kidding me." Hollis shook his head. "You know how it was. G was so bossy when Mama was sick. Everything had to be her way. I think he got tired of it." "G was worried. She needed help and he wouldn't give any." "What about him, Hollis?" "What do you mean?" "What about he was a loser who couldn't handle responsibility?" Hollis glared. "G says that. I've heard her." "Doesn't matter who said it if it's true. There has to be more." "Why? 'Cause you want it that way? Sounds like you blame Mama for being sick." Hollis felt the blood rush into his face. "That's not fair. I miss Mama something awful, but she's gone. What if something happens to G? Where would we go? Foster care?" He shuddered. Got no other family but Dad and, well, Grammy Williams. He and Jonas both rolled their eyes. And she won't take us, and we don't want her anyway. Well, Dad don't want us either. Hollis scowled. Dad's a part of us, and I want to know him. Grammy Williams is a part of us. Hollis grimaced. Yeah, but we already know everything we need to know about her. Jonas frowned. I'll be 18 next summer. I can take over then. It'll be hard, though. As for that man, you have to wait until you're 18 yourself, because G's never going to let you look for him before then. In fact, you'd better just wait until G dies, or she might never forgive you. She's sure never going to forgive him. Hollis opened his mouth to reply, but Jonas put up his hand. Listen, he said as he scooted over to touch G's arm, awakening her. Hollis strained his ears and caught the faint whoop, whoop of a helicopter. Hope flared inside him. Finally, help's coming. The sound grew stronger, and all over the neighborhood people scrambled to their feet and cheered. Hollis and Jonas leaped up as well and kept hopping, waving their arms and shouting, Over here! Over here! Boys, G's voice grated. She cleared her throat. Stop that bouncing and sit. You'll fall, and we don't need that. The two boys stopped jumping, but kept waving. The helicopter flew past them in a steady line, neither slowing nor turning. It grew smaller and smaller in the sky, its sound fading away. Hollis felt his heart sink. His hands dropped to his sides. What are they doing? Jonas asked, his hands on his hips. Seems like they're leaving, G said, and now Algie's awake. Letta and Algie were blinking and stirring. Letta sat up, but to everyone's relief, Algie turned on his side and went back to sleep. Hollis scuffed his shoe against the shingles. Maybe they'll be back soon, he said. Maybe, G said. Y'all miserable up here, I know. No games, no TV. Come on, Noodle, help me, will you? I need to stretch my back. Jonas climbed over Hollis and helped G sit up. He squatted behind her, holding her up. She took a long, slow look around. Couldn't see much before, but my, we're in a pickle, no mistake. Don't let that helicopter leaving worry you, Hollis. They're flying around to see what's what. Got a lot of people to pick up, and they can't fit everyone in that one helicopter, now can they? Maybe they want to see where the people are to send boats, Jonas said, rubbing his forehead. I mean, he said, nodding at the neighborhood, where's that thing gonna land? Okay, baby, G said, and patted Jonas's hand. Lay me out, I've stretched enough. Baby? Jonas laughed. You're slipping, G. You haven't called me baby. G smiled. You'll always be my baby, Jonas. Each and every one of you. Gifts from my most wonderful baby, your mama, God rest her. She groaned a bit as he eased her down. Thank the Lord the sun's not out. There's no shade, and all this water is going to make a whale of a stink. Smells like sewer and motor oil. Nasty. Listen, if I go back to sleep and Noah shows up with the ark or a couple gallons of water we can drink, wake me up, you hear? The day went on. No boats motored past, but several more helicopters flew by. Each time, fewer people jumped up to wave. Eventually, everyone just watched as the big machines roared by. One or two slowed, hovering over the houses for a moment before flying away again. Maybe they're counting us, Hollis said, and they'll bring a really big boat or a whole fleet to get us out. Jonas nodded. Maybe. Weird to think of boats driving up and down the street like cars. Hey! The faint call came from a house across the street. Jonas waved to acknowledge them. Y'all got an axe? The man yelled. Jonas held up the axe over his head. Can you swim? Jonas waved again. We got people on the next street stuck in their attic. Our axe fell in the water, so we can't help them. Can you? Jonas turned to G. Can I? No, indeed, she said, in surprised irritation. I don't want you in that water. Dangerous. Besides, I need you here. But, Jonas began. No. Jonas sighed and made a wave-off motion with his arms. They got babies, the man persisted. Babies, G, Jonas said. I heard him, she barked, glaring at him. What did I just say? You're my baby. I say no. Sorry, Jonas yelled to the neighbor, and he glanced at sleeping Algie. The man waved to let him know he'd heard. They'll find someone, G said. All these folks on their roofs, one of them can go help. Jonas didn't say anything, but Hollis saw his jaw tighten. Listen, Jonas, G rasped. It's going to get dark soon. There's no light but the lantern, and it's going to be blacker than my winter coat. You won't be able to see your hand in front of your face. This is no time to be swimming around.